consistency in your everyday work with the horses is important for them. They need to. You have to establish a level of work ethic that they are expected to do every day, and then they will do that every day. If horse doesn't know when you're having a lazy day or not feeling great or whatever, and they say you're either training or you're untraining, and so there's a level that I expect from first myself and my horses and the people that work for me or ride with me, that you do things consistently and clearly and understand what the goalposts are and what you want to get out of each ride and what you want to get out of each horse in the long term, but you can't put the long-term goal in front of what's going on right now. And so the quiet repetition of making them understand exactly what you want and to me that's then fair to the horse.
Welcome to the Practical Horseman podcast, featuring conversations with respected riders, industry leaders, and horse care experts. The show is co-hosted by Practical Horseman editors, and our goal is to inform, educate, and inspire. I'm Sandy Olenek, and this week's episode is with eventer Buck Davidson. When you hear Buck's given name, Bruce Davidson Jr., you might initially connect him with his father, five-time Olympian Bruce Davidson Sr. But as Buck and I spoke at the inaugural Maryland 5-Star at Fair Hill in October, what really struck me was how many of his answers focused on the well-being of the horse. Early in the interview, Buck talks about the influence of his father and mother, Carol Davidson, and how they instilled in him a work ethic and belief that the horse comes first. If you don't care for the horse, Buck recalls them saying, you can forget about how good you ride. Similarly, when I asked Buck about living with the Davidson name, he explained that any pressure comes from within, from his own expectations of whether he's doing a good job for the horses he rides, not only with results, but in making sure they are happy and healthy. Buck and I also chatted about the influential horses in his career, and he spoke of course, Ballynoe Castle RM, otherwise known as Reggie, who brought Buck to 2 World Equestrian Games in 2010 and 2014, and earned the U.S. Eventing Association's highest scoring horse of all time in 2014. Buck also discusses Park Trader, who didn't have Reggie's resume, but taught Buck about patience and being very clear to the horse about what he wants, mainly because if Buck didn't, he ended up with a lot of broken bones. As for Buck's training philosophy, he shares that it's about consistency and making sure the horses know exactly what is expected of them. If you're driving a car and a turn is coming up, he explains, you don't expect the car to turn on its own. The same is true of the horse. Those are just a few of the insights that you'll glean from our conversation, where Buck also discusses being father to his 2 young daughters, Aubrey and Ellie, with his wife Andrea. To fill you in more about Buck's background, he grew up working and riding on his parents' farm in Unionville, Pennsylvania. Buck was just 22 years old when he and Pajama Game made their U.S. team debut at the 1999 Pan American Games. He's won the Markham Trophy as the highest placing young rider in a USET championship 3 times. He's finished in the top 10 at the Kentucky 3-day event 6 times since 1998, taking the Pinnacle Trophy for highest placed U.S. rider in 2009 and 2013. He was a Pan American team member in 2011 with Absolute Liberty and the alternate for the 2012 U.S. Olympic eventing team. Buck won the Jersey Fresh CCI 4-Star Long in 2014 with Copper Beach and in 2015 with Reggie. And in 2016, he and Copper Beach were first in the Rebecca Farm CCI 4-Star Long. He started his own business, BDJ Equestrian, when he was 26 years old, and currently runs it out of Chesterland Farm in Unionville. We'll move into the conversation shortly, but first I want to thank the sponsor of this week's podcast, Horse Report System. Designed with busy trainers and riders in mind, Horse Report System's mobile app helps you coordinate horse health and training logs, stable tasks, and staff and client communication on any phone, tablet, or computer. Add demographics, photos, and documents, assign team members, easily record training notes, appointments, and care needs. Stop hunting through notebooks or text messages to find out when a horse last had his hocks injected, who is due for vaccinations, or how a horse is progressing in training. Improve efficiency, accountability, and communication by integrating Horse Report System into your program. See why users love the intuitive dashboard, uncomplicated design, and streamlined functionality, and get a free demo today at www.horsereportsystem.com. Now, let's jump right into the interview with Buck, where he talks about how he first started riding. So, Buck, can you just talk a little bit about what drew you to horses, and were you always focused on eventing?
I'm not sure I really had much of a choice. It was a family business, obviously. My parents both rode, and I did a lot of fox hunting as a kid. I did pony racing, then I ended up timber racing, and eventing was sort of the last stop on the equestrian spectrum, I guess. But I always liked horses. I knew that I wanted to be some sort of athlete. I wasn't probably somebody cut out for school and sitting behind a desk. So, this seemed like it would work for me.
I read that in your much younger years you were devoted to baseball. So what changed your shift to riding? And did you learn anything from baseball that applied to your riding?
Not really. I mean, I played baseball. I had a bit of ability at baseball. I loved ice hockey. That's really what I did mostly. I did like 1600 national team and all that stuff, but I wasn't good enough to play in the NHL. I figured that bit out. And baseball, I was a little bit too slow, and I didn't love it like I loved hockey. And I played soccer, I really enjoy the team aspect, and I've sort of incorporated my team sports into my, riding and business, and being an event rider is an inherently selfish sport, and I really try to bring my guys together, and we're all kind of one team, and if one wins, we all win. If one loses, we all lose, kind of thing. And that sort of locker room feel that before a game where everybody was, pulling in the same direction is what I'm trying to achieve it in my own barn.
Mm-hmm. And when you say selfish sport, just because you're the rider, there's one.
Yeah, it's you and your horse, and that you're not relying on another person to pass you the ball, or another person to field the ball, or shoot the puck, or whatever, or stop the puck. So it can be a bit of a selfish game, but it's so important, the people that you have behind you, and the pit crew, so to speak. But I've been lucky over my career.
So your father's one of the most famous venters of all time. Can you talk a little bit about some of the key elements of riding and horsemanship that you learned from him, and how that shaped you as a rider?
I still to this day am somebody that learns by watching more than I do by being told or whatever. And so I grew up my whole life watching my parents ride, watching, the amount of people that came through my dad's place that, I just ended up watching just because I was there. I think that, obviously really helped me, and my parents always instilled hard work into me, and that nothing was going to come for free. And, that the horse comes first, and if you don't take care of the horse, feed it, groom it, take care of it properly, you can forget about how good you ride. So that's always been my number one focus, is taking care of the horse and having the horse be at his best, and that will allow us to be at our best.
So do you feel a lot of pressure to live up to your father's name, or how do you kind of work with that?
No, not at all. I mean, it's a different time. It's although I have the same name, I go by Buck, and nobody calls me Bruce unless they don't know me.
I feel like we see it on the
on the scoreboard. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
Yep, exactly. There's no added pressure for me. Pressure is only what you put on yourself, and I would put a lot of pressure on myself, and I'm more worried about doing a good job for the horses and making them look and perform the way I think they should, hopefully make the owners proud, and that not only the horses produce a good result, but look look well, healthy, happy, and keep continuing on. So I love the horses, and I want them to last, and that's always been my thing.
Are there other riders or coaches who've influenced you in particular?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Like I've Andrew Nicholson has been sort of a family friend for a long time, and I've always looked up to him as a as a rider and a competitor, and just a horse person. And the things that he tells you just on the just sort of flippantly is those are the times you need to listen. And but I've learned from so many, and people out here that I just keep my eyes open in the warm-ups, and there's things I learn every time I'm in the warm-up. And Aaron Vale's a great friend of mine. We do a lot of stuff together. There's lots and lots of people, and so I've been very fortunate to to show, jump, race, ride, dressage, event. So there's a lot of people out there that I look up to.
How did you meet Aaron? Because he's a show jumper.
I was trotting a horse down the road in 1999, and this car pulled up. Two heads popped out, and they said, "Are you Buck Davidson?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said it was Andrea King and Aaron Vale. And they said, "Where are you?" And I told them how to get to my farm. And I said, "I'll be back in 20 minutes." And they showed up, and Aaron and I have been great friends since. And he's helped me a lot. I've convinced him to do some events, and our kids are great friends now. And it's fun to have a friend that is doing it at the same level, but in a different environment. And so we can still talk about horses, but it's not the same. But we mostly talk about the Cowboys and the Eagles, and and of course he's a Cowboys fan, I'm an Eagles fan, and I don't have much to talk about right now.
Very, very cool. So you've had a lot of special horses. Is there one who stands out?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Reggie Ballyno Castle RM was, he's still the highest points horse in this country. He passed away this year at Kentucky, and he did things for me that I would only dream of. I had a horse called Park Trader that probably didn't have the accomplishments on paper that Reggie did, but Kobe he taught me more about riding and how to train a horse than any other horse that I've ever ridden out.
How so? Like, what did he?
He just taught me more patience and seeing it through the horse's eyes a little bit more, and explaining things to him rather than trying to muscle them. And he was a tricky horse. Well, he's still alive. He's a tricky horse, but he was when he had it lined up, it was amazing. And he get me to take my time, but make it very clear to the horse what I want. And
because would he just not do it if you weren't?
Yeah, I mean, I think I broke like 6 collarbones on him or something, like something crazy. He had quite a reputation when I got him. He'd been through a lot of people and some really good people, and I'm really thankful to him for all the things that he taught me. And I wish I have a horse called Cooley Candyman that was second last week in the 4-star at Morven, who's only 8. That reminds me of Park Trader, and I think Rollo will be better because of Kobe. Like they're a little bit the same personality. I got Cooley Candyman a little bit younger, so a little bit easier to sort of organize him, but he would have the same mentality as Park Trader. He would, if he's not lined up and he's not positioned to do it, you might be in trouble, and you're definitely not going to win the fight. So there's absolutely no point in fighting.
What made you, especially if you've broken bones, what made you stick with him and like say, okay, I'm sticking with this horse?
I absolutely loved him. From the moment I watched him gallop by me, I was in Kentucky and I was out on the cross-country course, and I watched, he was doing what's now a 2-star, and I watched him gallop by, and I thought, oh my God, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And the Seagulls, who have been amazing to me, were looking for a horse then, and and I just fell in love with him. And it wasn't until I broke my first collarbone that I found out about all of his history, of the people that he'd been through. But it was rewarding. I mean, in the end, he was a horse that was really reliable in the dressage. He was in the 20s pretty much all the time, and it's I just loved his personality. I love the fight. I love the athleticism, and I thought he was absolutely beautiful and unbelievably intelligent.
Going back to Reggie a little bit, what was he like?
Reggie was completely the opposite of Kobe. He was. I've never had a horse that's tried harder. Everything Reggie did, he put 100% in. You ride him at home, and he would, try his best. He didn't. He didn't look all that fancy or anything special at home. He just kind of, did his thing. But he was very, very careful. He was quite strong, hard-pulling horse, but he was unbelievably honest. And he had, I don't know how many wind surgeries, but he had so many breathing problems. The fact that he did anything was amazing. But the biggest thing about Reggie was that his durability. Like, he never missed a day of work. He just every single day showed up and went to work. And so he was able to get trained probably to a higher level than his ability. He probably, he wasn't the most natural galloper, he wasn't the most natural anything, but he had a heart and a brain to die for.
Yeah. It's kind of neat, because sort of like with people, it sort of shows you don't have to be the best talent
Exactly.
to make it to the top.
Exactly. And that was the difference. That's Kobe had all the talent. He was the best talent. Reggie was the worker. If he could have combined them, they'd have been amazing. But I'm very fortunate. They're both awesome horses, and Reggie has brought the family together, so to speak. With the Seagulls and myself and Kathleen, and that band is still together, which is really cool.
That is cool. So what do you think overall makes a good event horse, and what qualities do you look for?
Well, first, I always look at their eyes. Like, if I want to look the horse in the eye, and if I can't look him in the eye, then probably don't want to ride him. But their brain, their temperament, and then from there you obviously look at their jumping ability and the movement and all that kind of stuff. But for me, the brain is the most important thing, and and for me, excuse me, I think the size is important. As far as, I'm not a very tall rider and or a tall person, and so I would prefer a smaller horse that is a little bit shorter and a little bit quicker, sort of more of a sports car. But I've sort of figured that out over a little bit of time, and I'm probably better at making one that's a little bit careful, braver. Probably not quite as good as on one that's super over brave. But so you sort of start to figure out things about yourself too, and what are my strengths, and then then I'll no horse is going to come perfect, so you try to buy one that can cover up for your weaknesses, and if it's a little bit less than something that maybe I'm a little bit better at, then that's okay. So try to match up personalities as best you can.
When you say you help horses that maybe aren't brave become braver, why is that a strength of yours, or what do you do that makes that a strength?
I don't know. I think I feel I think that I'm certainly braver than I am smart, that's for sure. But I feel like I have ability to put a horse in a good balance on the right stride, and and able to impart my ability and maybe courage into them, and get them to believe a little bit more. And sometimes, if I'm on one that's a little bit too brave, and then I get too brave, then it ends up sort of backfiring a little bit. So, obviously, you're always trying to work on, my deficiencies, and, on a braver one, I'm trying to be quieter and not quite so brave, and these are just things as you learn as you go.
Yeah, that's neat. Was there a point in your career that you felt like you'd really reached the big time as a rider?
No. In short, no. I mean, I've won a few 4-stars, but I've never won a 5-star. It's interesting. And somebody say to me, the other day that they were sick of being pretty good, and I thought that was an interesting statement, because who says you're pretty good, right? Like, I don't ever put myself in a box, right? Like, I'm sure there's people out there that think I'm absolutely useless, and there's people out there that probably think I'm okay. And the reality is, I just get up every morning, put my britches on, and try to get better. And I can't spend too much time worrying about what other people think, and I just try to do the best job I can for my owners and my horses, and try to fill in the holes as best I can of where I'm not as good as I need to be, and and the things that I'm okay at, try to make them better. But no, I don't know that you ever think I've arrived. I'm not sure that, certainly for me, the defeats sort of sting worse than the wins help, if that makes sense, and which is probably not the best way to be. But as I feel like my wife always says to me, if I win, then I'm always like, well, I should have won. That was what I'm supposed to do. And if I don't, that how bad I did and how terrible it was, and la da da. And so I do try to work on seeing the small victories and things, and because especially in our sport, we're not completely in control of whether we win or lose, because all we can do is do the best dressage we can do. And if the judge gives you a 7 instead of a 7.5, you might not be able to make that up if you stay on it. So all I can do is do the best dressage I can and try to stay on that from there. But yeah, it's just to keep working at it.
Yeah, it's an interesting life lesson. I was listening to another podcast where they said people tend to beat themselves up. Like, if something goes well, they kind of still aren't like, well, that just kind of happened.
Yeah.
When you're really hard on yourself when things don't go well.
Yeah, and I think I'm, pretty good at putting it, out of my mind. But for a few minutes there, I wouldn't be. Let's put it this way: I wouldn't be somebody that's a big celebrator. Like, I'm not a, pretty quiet person, and certainly if something goes well, I'm not a big celebrator. And if it doesn't go well, I'd be back working at it pretty quick.
So you have had a lot of successes over the years. Is there a particular competition that stands out as like the best of your career?
There's been a few. I've had some good. Obviously Kentucky's a special place. I've had a lot of my biggest successes there. It's sort of the small victories. A horse that nobody's ever heard of, or probably never will have heard of, that goes well at some event that makes an owner really happy that it's sort of punched above its weight. That's always exciting, and but certainly Kentucky's been a fantastic place for me.
And you obviously ride and compete so many horses. If you have a round that's maybe not so good or met your expectations, how do you stay focused on the next ride?
That's easy. That's a good question, but that's for whatever reason, that part is easy. Like, it's you just once that one's done, you forget about it, and you concentrate on the next one. And I'll sort of go over it at the end of the day, and I could have won on 4 and I was second on 1, and I'd be figuring out why the one was try to figure out why the one that was second, and but you do. I mean, it's a sport. You have to stay in the moment, and looking in the rearview mirror does you no good. You just got to keep looking out the front windshield and keep looking at what's still possible, and just kind of try not to give up.
So as you had mentioned, you've had your fair share of injuries, including a broken neck in 2003 and a broken collarbone, some broken ribs. and you bounced back quickly. I guess it was after 3 months after you broke your collarbone, you placed fourth at the Jersey Fresh CCI 3-star. So how do you bounce back after injuries like that? Like does it affect you mentally?
No, if you think you're not going to take a ride in the back of an ambulance, you probably shouldn't be doing this, right? Like that's just kind of part of it. It's just the way it is. Certainly injuries are part of the game. It's a lot nicer when you don't hurt, and but it's also, this is my job, and that's how I provide for my family, and so I have a job to do. I need to get on with it, and as long as I'm not going to interfere with my horses or put them in harm's way, then I'm going to try to do it. I've made some mistakes for sure along the way where I was just so driven to do it that I was you're hurt, so then you end up hurting more, and then you end up having something else happen. And so as I get older, I'm trying to be smarter, and trying to ride less horses, but trying to ride better horses, which is not an easy thing to do. It's not this life is amazing, but it's not a financially lucrative thing, and and they're not, contrary to what people think, there are not a lot of people out there trying to send you amazing horses, and but yeah, injuries are part of the game, and if an injury is affecting me mentally, then I won't do it. But if when the person says go, if it's still hurting, then you're probably in trouble. But generally, adrenaline kicks in, and you're okay.
And then on that, do you get nervous?
Oh yeah, of course I do. Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly sure why you would do this if you didn't get nervous. I think there's a difference. I think if I'm not nervous, then I almost get more nervous that I'm not nervous. Does that make sense? I sort of feel like the nerves actually help me. I think when nerves turn to scared, I think you probably should do something else. I can't imagine being scared to do something. I'm not going to go to a scary movie. I don't have any interest in going to a haunted house. Like, that stuff doesn't really interest me, right? But yeah, nerves for me are just, that means I'm sharp and I'm paying attention and I'm focused.
And do you have to do anything to kind of keep them in check, or just you kind of know that about yourself and know that's part of it?
Yeah, I mean, I know that Friday night's not a great night for sleeping, and Saturday morning's a little bit, stressful, but yeah, I mean, it's what I do. It's every single weekend, and you sort of learn to live with it a little bit.
So we've all seen your lucky socks on the jog strip, Kentucky and here. How did that ritual start, and do you have any other pre-competition rituals or superstitions?
Yeah. No, I mean, I have no idea how it started, and I don't have any idea how it started, and I'm not exactly sure how it's kept on, but it's kind of almost become a thing that everybody wants to check and make sure I have my socks on, and so it's kind of a cool little whatever. But no, I don't have, I wouldn't be super superstitious, but I would be somebody that, if I, how I did the first 3 fences in the warm-up, if that horse goes well, then the second horse will do the next 3 fences, the first 3 fences the same kind of thing. That would be sort of my, a little bit superstition. I would probably pay attention to kind of how I went to the warm-up or how I did X, Y, or Z. But if it doesn't go well, I scrap all that and try something different. So I probably rely less on superstition as I get older, and hopefully just on training and knowledge.
So you did an article with Practical Horseman a few years ago, and you had said training horses is about consistency. If you want to teach your horse to jump a barrel without a bridle and saddle, you can do that. As long as you train your horse the same way, he will understand what's expected. Is that a big part of your training philosophy, or how would you describe your training philosophy?
Yeah, I think consistency and in your everyday work with the horses is important for them. They need to. You have to establish a level of work ethic that they are expected to do every day, and then they will do that every day. If horse doesn't know when you're having a lazy day or not feeling great or whatever, and they say you're either training or you're untraining, and so there's a level that I expect from first myself and my horses and the people that work for me or ride with me, that you do things consistently and clearly and understand what the goalposts are and what you want to get out of each ride and what you want to get out of each horse in the long term, but you can't put the long-term goal in front of what's going on right now. And so had the quiet repetition of making them understand exactly what you want. And to me, that's then fair to the horse. There's nothing worse than somebody that you see letting the horse do whatever it wants, and then all of a sudden gets mad at it for doing whatever it wants. That's, to me, not fair. So yeah, that consistency in training is everything.
And you travel all over the country coaching riders and teaching clinics. What are a few of the main common riding faults that eventers tend to have, and how do you help them overcome that?
Just that they don't know what they want, and so then they get mad at the horse for not doing it. And I always say that all the time when you're driving your car, just because there's a big turn coming doesn't mean you're going to expect the car to turn. You need to put the brakes on. If you want to slow down, you need to turn the wheel and stay. The car doesn't just stay on the road. Maybe they're starting to now, but your job is to not let it hit the tree. But for some reason, people think that the horse is just going to read your mind, and that doesn't happen. And so, and I see people in such a hurry. Everybody's in a rush to. Their friend did this, so they need to do that, and this person got this score, so they want to get that score. And the competition aspect is taking over more than the training aspect. And I think people need to understand horses a little bit and understand the training and the process, and quite frankly care more about the horse than they do about the result.
So it's almost like they might see you and others at these big competitions, but they don't see how much training.
Exactly. Yep. I mean, I can't tell you how many people come and come to my place, and they want to they can't believe what happens every single day, all day long. They think that my life is sitting here talking to you and going to ride 3 fancy horses in a 5-star, and they don't see. All the long hours riding horses that are never going to come here, and it's a lot of work, but it's when you can get to this level, it's fantastic. But if you're only doing this to get to this level or to ride on a team, I think you're going to be sort of sad in the end of the day.
So you and your wife Andrea welcome 2 beautiful daughters to your family over the last few years.
Yeah.
How has becoming a father changed you as a competitor?
I don't know that it's changed me as a competitor. It's made what I do make a little bit more sense to me. Like before I met Andrea, that it was. I do clinics, teach whatever, and it was all kind of for me. And then when I got married, it was okay. There's somebody else. But now with the 2 kids, it's you're not putting it into something for yourself. You're trying to make sure that they have all the clothes they need, make sure they have the school they need, whatever. And so as a competitor, I don't know that it's really changed me as a person. It probably has. Well, in my everyday life, it's probably changed a little bit. Like I used to get to the barn and get on the horses, and I'd just be there all day. But now I enjoy, playing with the kids in the morning and giving them breakfast, and my wife will tell you probably not doing enough at the house, but I enjoy watching them get up and and get ready, and then I enjoy getting home to have dinner with them and things like that. So the day is probably not as organized as it maybe it should be, but part of having kids is I want to be there for them. I want to be part of it, and if a horse, sometimes the kids come first, and and that's just it.
I think it was at Kentucky, and I'm not sure if it was after dressage or show jumping, but Aubrey was at the in-gate coming down the ramp, and you were coming up, and she had this big smile, and I think she was doing something really cute. And it was just neat to see, even at such a big event, just your response to her too. It was kind of like everything in the ring kind of went away for a few moments. And
totally. I mean, it's awesome. I was at where was I? Somewhere. I was at Burley, and I was doing my dressage test, and I hear, "Go, Daddy!" Like from from the sounds, I knew it was Aubrey. And even yesterday, my littlest one is 1, and so she's when she sees me, she lights up, and that's so cool. But you could hear her say "Dada, Dada" when I'm doing dressage yesterday, and so at the end of the day, they could care less whether I get a 28 or a 58. They when I'm done riding, they just want to play. And Aubrey wants to show me her stickers, and I got Ellie. I don't know what she wants, but she's it's awesome, and it's really fun to have my wife do this and my kids do this, and we get to I'm lucky we get to spend a lot of time together. And I mean, my kids love animals, and they love being outside, and so and they start to know the horses, and they know which ones are good and which ones are need to get better. And Aubrey owns a horse. She owns a horse that was third last week in the four-star at Morven Park called Sorokema. And we call him Cam, and so I'm like, Aubrey, who am I riding? It doesn't matter who it is. Cam. No, it's not Cam. And then the other one she likes is Rolo, but she's Cooley Candyman. So she guesses Rolo. Then I'm like, no, and she's like, Carlivo? I'm like, all right, we'll go with that. So she has, it's always the same order: Cam, Rolo, Carlivo, and then after that she gives up. She's like, Dad, I don't care.
She's got her priorities.
Exactly.
Are they showing an interest in riding?
Yes. A longtime friend, Jan Binney, gave Aubrey one of her ponies called Flea, and Flea is I don't know. He actually did some preliminaries, I guess. I don't know how old he is. He's old. But Aubrey loves to ride. She does a bit like I did when I was a kid. She doesn't really like to ride by herself. She likes to ride with her friends, and she doesn't really like to just ride. Like, she likes to have a competition. So if somebody wants to have a race or something like that, she's in. And she really looks up to Kinzer Vale, Aaron's daughter, who is a couple of years older than Aubrey. And Aubrey had a little pony that was kind of like a dog, and Kinzer was on like a proper pony, and Aubrey couldn't keep up, and so that wasn't so good. But now she's got Flea, and I think maybe she'll be able to beat Kinzer. So we have at the farm in Florida, there's a track, so that has railings around it, so they can go and have fun and cruise around there, and you feel fairly safe that they're all right. Yeah, they're sort of channeled in there, and Aubrey's a little bit wild though. She's very much like I was. Maybe I am, like, so competitive that sometimes she doesn't always think her way through everything. But
Go first.
Yep, exactly. Head first always, and but it's really cool to have them.
So to wrap up, what horses, do you have some special horses coming up that you're excited about?
I do. I have the two I talked about that were at Morven Park last week that were second and third. They're two of the as good a horses I've had. Cooley Candyman's only 8, and I think he's a superstar. And the Sorocame I've only had for sort of 18 months, and he I think he could be a special horse too. So I have a couple of young horses that are coming up, and I think I need to probably start to think about getting, like these guys are getting a bit older, and I've maybe need to start thinking about looking into some more young horses to keep the pipeline filled up. But yep, we're ticking away, and we've got some nice horses hopefully on the way up.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode with Buck Davidson, and a big thank you to the sponsor of this week's episode, Horse Report System. Learn more at www.horsereportsystem.com. You can subscribe to the Practical Horseman podcast on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. While you're there, please rate and review the show. I'm Sandy Olenek, and you've been listening to the Practical Horseman podcast.